he died suddenly, just like that. And I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to him. And I woke up funky and I went, shit, what is it? And then I realized that was it. It was just like in here, in my wiring and in my constitution.
He wasn't just a wrestler, he was a walking brand. Red and yellow, bandana and boots, the 24-inch pythons, the voice, the sweat, the glory. Hulk Hogan was America's muscle. Kids idolized him, adults watched him, and corporations printed his face on everything from cereal to lunchboxes. For decades, he was untouchable, the unbeatable force that defined wrestling's golden era. But underneath the screaming fans and slammed opponents was a man living in slow collapse. And the collapse, it was ugly. Because while the cameras showed a hero, the backrooms whispered something else entirely. Betrayal, racism, lawsuits, a fractured family, a sex tape, and the one thing no legend survives, being cancelled by their own fans. Let's rewind the body slam of his career and pull off the mask. By the early 2000s, Hulk Hogan had already conquered the ring. WWE, WCW, reality shows, movie cameos. He made being loud and blonde a business model, but that image, it started cracking fast. First came his divorce from Linda Hogan, and it wasn't your average irreconcilable differences breakup. It was nasty. After 24 years of marriage, Linda accused him of infidelity, financial deceit, and emotional abuse. She claimed he was obsessed with younger women, controlling and, according to court records, hiding money to avoid paying full spousal support. Hogan denied it, of course, but the damage was done, and the press ate it up. One tabloid headline screamed, "Hogan can't handle his own home." That was just the beginning. Then came the accident. August 2007, his son Nick Hogan, barely 17 at the time, was racing his Toyota Supra in Clearwater, Florida. He lost control, crashed. The passenger, his friend John Graziano, a Marine, suffered permanent brain damage. Doctors said he'd never live independently again. Hogan's response? Not what you'd expect from a doting father. In a jailhouse call leaked to the press, Hulk and Nick were recorded blaming John's injuries on karma and suggesting he should have straightened up his life. America recoiled. The man who once told kids to say their prayers and eat their vitamins was now talking like a man who blamed the victim. The Hogan brand cracked, but it didn't shatter, not yet. It took one word to do that, and it was caught on tape. In 2015, a private conversation from Hogan's infamous sex tape surfaced, and inside it was a racist rant. He used the N-word multiple times, talking about his daughter Brooke's dating life, speculating about rich black men, and throwing out lines so vile, so soaked in bigotry, even his old-school wrestling fans couldn't spin it. The WWE immediately cut ties. They erased him from their website, removed his merchandise, and pulled him out of their Hall of Fame. Sponsors vanished. Former fans turned into critics. Wrestlers who once idolized him publicly called him out. Hollywood shut the door. Hogan wasn't just controversial, he was now toxic. And what hurt most? It wasn't the canceling, it was the silence. No one defended him. Not his old tag team partners. Not the network executives he made millions for. Not even the fans who used to chant his name like a hymn. He wasn't just cancelled, he was blacklisted, not by the media, but by the very machine that built him. Wrestling didn't just move on, it buried him. And yet, he kept coming back. Reality TV book tours. A slow return to the WWE, not through glory but apology. He tried to rewrite the script, claiming the tape was old, that he was raised differently, that he's not that person anymore. But by then, the world had changed. Social media doesn't forget. Screenshots live forever. And Hulk Hogan wasn't just a fallen hero, he became a lesson, a warning. A name people said with a sigh instead of a cheer. But don't think for a second this is where it ends. When Hulk Hogan died, the headlines were clean, too clean. Wrestling icon passes away at 71. The hero of the ring. The man who made wrestling mainstream. But the truth they didn't put in those headlines? That he died more alone than anyone expected. That by the time he left this world, Hollywood had ghosted him. Wrestling barely mentioned him. Fans, the same ones who wore the bandana and ripped their shirts in parking lots, had long since stopped defending him. Because the Hulk Hogan legacy wasn't just tarnished, it was actively erased. And now that he's gone, the things they never dared to say are crawling out from under the ring. Let's talk Hollywood. In the 80s and 90s, Hogan was box office cheese with muscles. Rocky III, Suburban Commando, Mr. Nanny. Studios loved him. He was a walking action figure. But after the Gawker lawsuit, the infamous sex tape leak and the courtroom war that followed, Hollywood iced him out. Quietly, brutally. Studios that once called him now wouldn't touch him. Cameos vanished, deals dissolved, directors ghosted, agents stopped calling. It wasn't just the tape, it was what was on it, the racism, the arrogance, the raw proof that the Hulk Hogan behind the curtain didn't match the one on lunchboxes. And if you want to know how deep the erasure went, just look at his former allies. Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, once called him a mentor. After the scandal, radio silence, WWE Hall of Famers, barely a whisper. No one wanted to touch the fallout. Hogan wasn't just cancelled, he was blacklisted. Industry insiders said he couldn't even book an interview unless it was tightly controlled or nostalgia-driven. Even on wrestling retrospectives, editors started cutting around him, re-editing history to avoid the controversy. And as Hogan aged, his once massive presence shrunk into whispers. From headlining WrestleMania to barely being mentioned in Hall of Fame reels. A legend erased in real time. And then there's his daughter, Brooke Hogan. The daddy-daughter bond that was once front and center on reality TV suddenly went cold. After the racist tape leaked, which directly mentioned Brooke's dating life in the ugliest, most bigoted way, she tried to defend him publicly. She wrote a poem, said he was misunderstood. But behind the scenes, the tension was real. Insiders claim Brooke distanced herself from her father, stepped away from the Hogan name, and tried to rebrand herself, but it didn't work. Her career stalled. And Hogan, once the proud show dad, suddenly had nothing left to manage. Another relationship, quietly fractured by scandal. And if you thought the drama stopped with the tape, think again. The Gawker lawsuit was supposed to be his redemption arc, the moment he took back control. Yes, he won. Yes, he bankrupted a media company. But behind that victory was another scandal. Peter Thiel, a billionaire tech investor, had secretly funded Hogan's legal battle. Why? Revenge. It wasn't just about Hogan's privacy. It was a targeted hit on Gawker. And Hogan, he became the puppet. Used to push a bigger agenda, then discarded once the headlines faded. Even in his so-called win, he wasn't the hero. He was a weapon, and everyone knew it. By the time Hogan reached his final years, he had no real platform left. WWE had reinstated him quietly, but fans booed. Live crowds turned cold. We forgive, but we don't forget, was the vibe. And Hogan never got the standing ovation he expected. He was invited back, but never embraced. A ghost walking through his own legacy. No more endorsement deals, no more action roles, no more podcast tours. Just long silences broken by forced apologies and awkward PR interviews. And while we're here, let's not forget the toxic masculinity that always trailed behind him. The obsession with alpha dominance, the real men don't cry attitude, the bizarre way he always framed his failures as everyone else's fault. Even in private court transcripts, Hogan came off as paranoid, controlling and calculating. Behind the muscles and the brother catchphrases was a man afraid of irrelevance. And when it came, slowly, painfully, he couldn't wrestle his way out of it. And this is the part where we ask the real question: was he really a legend, or just the loudest man in the room? Because legends leave behind a roar. Hogan left behind an echo. And now that he's gone, the story they tried to bury is finally breathing. If you're still with us, hit that like, drop a comment, and subscribe to Miss Cathy Knows, because this is where the stories no one else dares to tell finally get told. Boom! The icons we worship aren't always who they pretend to be, and when the bandana falls, when the lights fade, what's left? Just a man. One who spent his final years haunted by the scandals they all swore they'd forget. They called him the Immortal. But in the end, Hulk Hogan wasn't immortal. He was ignored. He didn't go out with a bang. There was no tribute tour, no national mourning, no stadium filled with screaming fans. He died in silence. And that silence, it wasn't an accident. It was designed. The final chapter of a career that went from hero to liability, icon to embarrassment, in the span of just 2 decades. And when he passed away, people didn't cry for him. They whispered. They remembered the scandals. They traded links. And they asked, what really happened to Hulk Hogan? The truth is, he was erased in real time. This wasn't just public backlash. This was corporate deletion. After the racial slur scandal, companies didn't just stop working with him, they wiped him off the books. Action figure contracts pulled, TV syndication deals gone, music licensing cut. At one point, you couldn't even search Hulk Hogan on the WWE website without getting a blank page. It was like he'd never existed. A man who once built an empire with his face on it, now treated like a virus they had to scrub out. And it didn't stop at the industry. The fans turned too. Not all at once. No, it was slower than that. At first they defended him, said it was a setup, that the tape was leaked unfairly, that everyone says dumb things in private. But time passed, screenshots circled, the audio got played again and again, and something shifted. Hogan wasn't controversial anymore, he was uncomfortable. People didn't chant his name, they winced when they heard it. At meet and greets, the lines got shorter. Comments under his Instagram turned colder. Even diehards started asking, do we really want that guy representing us? And his isolation grew. Not just socially, personally. Sources close to the family said he became increasingly paranoid in his later years. Burned by betrayal, lawsuits, tabloid disasters. He kept his circle small, trusted few. Some say he spent days holed up in his Florida home, refusing interviews unless they were pre-approved word for word. Friends from the wrestling world stopped calling. The new generation of wrestlers, they didn't idolize him, they resented him. Some even said it publicly. He set the worst example, one wrestler told a podcast just months before Hogan's death. He made it all about himself. Now look where it got him. And here's the final gut punch. He knew. Hogan knew the love was gone. The fans weren't cheering. The industry had moved on. And despite the lawsuits he won, despite the occasional legend segment the WWE threw him like a bone, he never really got back in. He was a relic, not celebrated, but tolerated. A cautionary tale in spandex and sweat. Because the truth they tried to bury wasn't just a scandal, it was a pattern. Hulk Hogan wasn't taken down by one bad moment. He was taken down by a lifetime of looking out for number one. From the locker room politics, to the sex tape lies, to the courtroom manipulation, to the interviews where he always found a way to blame someone else. He was always the hero of his own script. Until the audience stopped clapping. And now he's gone, and only now can the real story breathe. They tried to bury it behind nostalgia, behind flexing, behind sound bites and t-shirts. But scandals rot in silence. And Hulk Hogan's life? It wasn't a legacy, it was a cover-up. And now that he's gone, you finally know what they never wanted you to ask. Because here at Ms. Cathy Knows, we don't worship legends, we dig them up.